Let me start. Okay, so let me share my screen. This is the demo for the add-on batch, which already started at 8 p.m. 8:15 a.m. it started. A few demos were completed, and then we started the installations, infra setup and all. So we thought of having one more add-on session where you guys will be merged with the 8:15 a.m. batch, meaning the actual session will be started at 8:15 only. But this is the add-on batch, so that we have started the demos again for just 3 days from the 9 a.m. onwards. However, thank you so much for joining this session. And this is a Java real-time project using the microservices architecture and then the React.js. So let us see now the prerequisite required for this one. Okay, so before seeing the prerequisites, so this vShopify platform application, meaning if you join in this project is already existed one. So what we are doing is we are converting the existed architecture into the microservices architecture. So it is the migration of the existing system to the microservices architecture. So we need to understand first the existing system and what are the existing system, what are the modules of the existing system. And once we understood, then we need to derive the use cases out of it. And from the use cases, then we need to start our development and infra setup and all. Okay, so the prerequisite, now you understood, right? So this is already an existing product and we already have the existing code base and then database, everything that we already have. So now what we need to do, we need to convert into microservices architecture due to few limitations that the current architecture have. Current architecture is not a microservices architecture. So if we convert into microservices architecture, then we will get most of the benefits, meaning at least we will be solved with the most of the problems that the current system is facing. So what is current system and what are the issues that is facing currently? Let us go with that. But before going into that, let us come back to this session, come back to this prerequisite part. So this is a complete full stack development from the very scratch. That means UI, we are using the, we will use the React.js. So this is the cloud architecture which we will achieve. So if you can see this cloud architecture, so we have the microservices here. We're going to develop, and here we have the UI. So this React.js is what we're going to do the development from the scratch. So front end we are using the React.js, and back end we are using the microservices plus microservices ecosystem and all the microservices design patterns we will use. And to have this entire microservices architecture deployment, we will use the AWS cloud, and in AWS cloud we will use around 5 to 6 services to set up this architecture. So infrastructure setup wise, we already have the document listed for the infrastructure setup, what to be set up and all. So there is a VPC, there is a NAT gateway, load balancer, certificate manager, Route 53, right? And SSL/TLS enable. So all the things we will set up now. We will set up actually as part of this infrastructure setup. Okay, so slowly I'll explain one after the other how it will be, but let us first come with the prerequisite for this course. Type is full stack development. Full stack development meaning front end plus back end. UI integration logics, UI user interface rendering logics, along with the backend integrations. All those things we'll do in this full stack development. Full stack meaning front end plus backend, both the developments we will do. Duration of this course is 60 days. 60 days meaning you have to consider the 60 days after the demos. After the demos, we have to consider the 60 days. So we will use the AWS as our cloud platform. If you can see here, let me just log into this AWS cloud platform. So we'll use this AWS as our cloud platform where we will set up our entire infrastructure. Right. So whatever the architecture I have drawn, right, that entire architecture we will set up in our AWS. Okay, and if you can see here, we will, let me just try to access this one, https://v app.in. So this is what our domain, Shopify app.in, where we will use this domain and access all the microservices, UI and all. So if you can see, this is on HTTPS secured one. So using AWS certificate manager, we got this security certificate and we enable this certificate for our domain vshopify.in. And this domain I purchased in the GoDaddy. So what I mean to say is this is complete real time, pure real time, no difference with your real-time environment, complete real-time environment we're going to set up and then we're going to do here. So if you can see this prerequisite, AWS is required, but in those AWS 5 services which are required for us to set up infra. The backend technologies and then the framework that we are using is Spring Boot, microservices, Spring Cloud, Docker, AWS, and then the AWS, and then here we are using the WSO2 IAM. We are using the WSO2 IAM. Spring Boot, microservices, Spring Cloud, Docker, AWS, and WSO2 IAM is what the tech end. We are using React.js 18.x, latest as on today, React hooks, and then Redux store we are using. So prerequisite for this batch is already you should have the knowledge on Java 8, Spring Core, Spring MVC, and Spring Boot. Spring Core, Spring MVC, and Spring Boot. I thought of starting the Spring Boot weekend sessions. If any one of you don't know Spring Boot, also you can probably join this project session because I'm going to start the Spring Boot weekend sessions where I will allow you there for the Spring Boot sessions as well. So parallelly, if you guys don't know Spring Boot, parallelly you can attend the Spring Boot weekend sessions. It is for 2 weekends and then you can start this project. So 2 weekend Spring Boot sessions you can attend and then you can comfortably work in this project. If you don't know Spring Boot, if you know Spring Boot, that is well and good, right? So microservices from very scratch, I will explain theoretically, practically, and all. I'll explain about the microservices. So microservices, and also we are using here microservices design patterns. Spring Boot, microservices, Spring Cloud also will use, Docker will use, AWS as the cloud platform, WSO2 IAM, and we will use the design patterns as well. We'll use the design patterns. So microservices design patterns we will use because the coding methodology right now, the coding, the way how we have to do the coding has been completely changed. Earlier we have used most of the members use the gang of 4 design patterns and then written their code. Right now also we'll use the gang of 4 design patterns, but along with those gang of design patterns, we also will use the microservices patterns. Also, we will use the reactive programming patterns and all. Reactive programming we will use, right? So the coding has been lot of coding standards were changed. So Kubernetes, I'm not going to touch here till only the Docker I will touch. For the Kubernetes, I will take a separate 1 month paid batch. That is a separate 1 month paid batch. After this project, I will take so that the others will join. And if you want, you guys also can join. So the entire our microservices can be deployed using that Kubernetes. But right now, no Kubernetes, only Docker we have. Right? So hope it is clear. The technologies frameworks is clear. Once after you attended this project, how many years of experience you can showcase? If you want, if your experience documents with supports, you can showcase 3 years to 5 years of experience. Even you can put 6 years of experience as well if your documents will support for that. So better 3 to 5 or 2 to 5. 2 to 5 you can put experience. 2 to 5 years, confidently you can show your experience on this project. 2 to 5 years of experience you can showcase. So all the project documentations, project guide, use cases documentation, installation documentation, whatever the documentation, those entire documentation material I'll provide. And then the classes recordings will be also provided for you with the validity of 4 months, because this course is for 2 months. And 2 more months, we will provide the course validity. 2 months is for the course. The recordings will be available, everything as regular. 2 more months will provide the additional validity. And all soft copies and all will be shared to you through the Google Classroom. I will provide you the access on this classroom material. So classroom material you can download, you can keep it with you, but the video recordings you can't download. Those are just viewable videos. Can't download, you can't share it. But materials you can download, you can keep it with you. Okay. So what are all the tools and what are all the technologies that we are using? Just I have covered. And what are all the tools that we are covered? What are the tools that we are using? Let me just glance you through. So these are all the tools or the services that we use in our project. Around 26 tools or 26 services we are using here. Yeah, only online classes, no offline, only online. The mode of this is only online. And the timings of this batch from 8:15 a.m. to 9:30 or 9:15. Weekly only just 1 hour I will take, but weekend, one Sunday or one Saturday, according to our feasibility, we have to spend minimum 3 hours. Minimum 3 hours we have to spend in weekends. And in weekdays, it is just 1 hour because everyone is now starting to offices, right? 9:15 will be little late, or 9:30 will be obviously little late for all of you guys. So 8:15 to 9:15 sharp, but weekends we have to spend minimum 3 hours of our time to complete this project. Okay. So okay, so this intention of this batch is what? Intention of this batch is you need to know the Spring Boot only. If you know only the Spring Boot, then you will learn here the microservices and all, and one complete project from the very scratch. If you don't know the project so far, don't worry. Here we will do from very scratch. From very beginning, we will do this project. Okay. So now let us go into this project. Okay. Before going to this project concepts, modules and all, first let me showcase you the services or the tools that we are using in this project. So MySQL database will use, H2 database will use, MongoDB database we will use. Three databases we will use here. If you see this architecture, so one microservice will use one database, whereas another microservice will use another database. This is called as polyglot architecture. So one of the microservices characteristic it is microservices supports the polyglot architecture. That means one microservices may connect to one database, another microservice may connect to another database. So different microservices may connect to different databases. Based on the volume of the data that microservice can contains, will go for the database choosing. See here, category services using MySQL, product services using the Mongo, order services using the DocumentDB, and then the payment services using again the MySQL. Different databases it is. So here we will use MySQL, H2, and then MongoDB. This is the databases we are using. And if you can see this architecture diagram, we are using the Redis cache as well. So Redis cache we will install and then we will set up. But to connect to this Redis cache, we required a tool, client tool. Like how to connect to the MySQL server, we required the MySQL workbench or MySQL GUI or Toad or any other tools, like how we will use to connect to these database servers. Similarly, to connect to this cache server also, we have a tool that is called Redis Insight. So this is a cache client tool we will use here. And in our architecture, if you can see, we are using the Apache Kafka. So just see here, Apache Kafka we are using for the streaming purpose. Streaming purpose in the sense, we'll have the concept of distributed transactions in microservices. So distributed transactions in microservices. What is that means? What is that means is once payment success, then only the order should have to be placed. Then only the product should have to be deducted from its godown, its warehouse. So let's say we have the 10 mobiles, 10 OnePlus mobiles. Customer ordered one mobile. So our now warehouse contains only 9 mobiles, but customer placed an order, but payment failed. So due to this payment failed, again, this order also should have to be failed, and then our godown or warehouse should have to be reset back to the count of the products as 10, but not the 9. Correct? So what it is? This is called as a transaction. So, but this transaction is initiated in payment microservice, a separate Spring Boot application. Then based on the transaction initiated here, how the other microservices can roll back their modifications, right? So based on the transaction initiated in one microservice, how the other microservices will roll back their data modifications. That means we have to trigger these transaction details, transaction status to these microservices. We need to trigger one event. So that event will be taken by these, and accordingly they will roll back those changes. To handle such event mechanism, event-driven microservices, we will use this Apache Kafka. Okay, so as we are using the Apache Kafka here, to connect to the Apache Kafka broker or to connect to the Apache Kafka Zookeeper, so we will use one tool called Offset Explorer. This is the tool we will use for connecting to our Kafka cluster. That means Zookeeper plus Kafka brokers. So to connect to this, we will use this Offset Explorer. Then we will use the MySQL Workbench, which is a MySQL client tool. So we will set up and then install the MySQL server, right? For that to connect, we will use this MySQL Workbench. Then we will use AWS S3 bucket. Why we will use AWS S3 bucket? Because if we can use our project, if we can see, for example, let us see the category module. If you can see this category module, see here we are uploading the image for the category. Category is mobiles and then computers. And for this category, we are uploading one image. And similarly, we are generating the PDFs, reports we are generating. So these PDFs should be readable sometimes, should be downloadable sometimes. So these PDFs, these images, and other documents, if any we are using in our system, those we will keep inside the S3 bucket, AWS S3 bucket, which we will be used as a object store. Then next, Keystone, I thought to use this Keystone as well, because AWS have some limitation S3 bucket, just only 5 GB data it is offering us free, but after 5 GB it is costing us. So this is cloud object store. Similarly, we have the on-premise object store. We can set it up very freely without costing 0 rupee. We can set up this Keystone, which is the OpenSwift component. But I don't want to set up this in our infra. So I just abstract it out because it's an extra burden, or if time permits, let us see, but I'm not guarantee, I'm not sure for this, but AWS we will use for storing our product images and our documentations, PDFs, and order copies, invoice copies. To save them, we will use this S3 bucket. Then RabbitMQ. This RabbitMQ will use as a message broker. So here in the architecture, if you can see, we have the config server. So this config server will use the config bus. So that config bus required this RabbitMQ. What is the usage of this? Did you observe one real-time use case? For example, Ola, Uber, or aeroplane, air tickets. If we can observe that use case, morning will be one price, afternoon will be one price, evening will be one price. For the same place to same destination. For example, from Amirpet, Maitrivanam to Gachibowli, Wavrak building, morning hours, it show you around 250 rupees. But if you book it in the evening hours, it may show like 330, 350 rupees. And if you again book it back from the Wavrak to same Amirpet, Maitrivanam in the evening around 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., it will show around like 450, 500, 600. What happened? How the fares are instantly changing, right? The fares are instantly changing. So do they have any mechanism? So backend, one person will be there, they will upload something, or they will deploy the code. No, they will have a configuration management system. So in that configuration management system, based on the search time, they will set up the price. That means they will have a nice UI where they will log in. They will choose the region. That means that is called as geofence location. They will choose the geofence location and then they will increase the price. When they save, that price increased 10%, 20%, whatever it is. When they save, automatically the price get reflected in the app. how it is happening. They are not deploying the code. They are not doing the code changes, but the values are reflecting in our application. So that is what externalizing the configuration. The similar concept also we will use here using the Spring Cloud server. For example, if you want to set up any product price, what we will do the change of the product price in our Git repository, and then we will just commit it. Then config server will take those changes, and then config server will sprinkle those changes to the bus. Then bus will take those changes, that is RabbitMQ, and this bus will emit those changes to all the relevant microservices. What are the microservices required these changes? To all those microservices, this RabbitMQ will deliver the changes. So RabbitMQ here we are using as a bus, cloud bus. Okay, right. So next is what here, if you can see, we are using here Apache Kafka. This I already explained, right? Event store and then streaming process. For the streaming process and for the event storing, we are using this Apache Kafka. We'll also have a nice use case. What is that nice use case is these products have the barcode, QR code, correct? Every product will have the QR code. So if we scan the QR code details, then we should have to get the product details. So if you can scan that QR code, then you have to receive the product details. So that is something what the streaming related one. Okay, so there are plenty of the use cases related to this event streaming and then Apache Kafka for achieving this. Okay, then next is what we will use Twilio for the messaging service. Twilio we will use for the messaging service. So what is the use case for this messaging service? What is the use case of this messaging service? The use case is, if you can see our project, again concepts. So there is a module called user management. So this user management will have the concept of self-registration. So let's go and then showcase you the use cases. I'm just explaining you why we are using the each and every tool just for purpose. So there is a use case. One moment. That use case is called self-registration. So we have the customer module. Yes. So this customer is like you and me. See this customer need to register. So when the customer register himself, that is called as a self-registration. So when the customer will be registered, then we have to send a verification email to the customer email address. So in order to send that email, so send the email with the verification link. And that verification link should be active for 48 hours. And after 48 hours, the link won't work. Link should not work. Right? If they click on after 48 hours, the verification link should have to be expired. But the case here is every registered user should have to get one verification link over the email. For that, we will use this Twilio as a messaging service. Using Twilio, we can send messages and OTPs, and also we can send the we can configure the mail servers as well using this Twilio. Messaging service, mail service, both will have. So here we will have one more use case called multi-factor authentication, MFA. So multi-factor authentication we will have when the user is changing the password, when the user is trying to forget his password and then recovery. So at that moment, we will trigger the multi-factor authentication using OTP sending. So there also we will use this Twilio. So Twilio we are using for the messaging purposes, like for sending the text messages to the mobile. And also this Twilio we will use for the mail server purpose as well. But underlying mail server, we will use this Google Gmail server, GSMTP. Gmail server we will use as a mail server for triggering the mails. And we will use Keycloak as an IDP here, not Keycloak actually. We are using WSO2 as WSO2 we are using WSO2 we are using as a IAM. WSO2 as a IAM we are using. Keycloak I thought of use, which is very lightweight compared to WSO2 architecture and all. But I am going with this WSO2 because so if your profile will have WSO2, definitely you will get more calls. So that's the reason I am just going with this WSO2. Right. And then we are using the Git and then the source tree for the source code management. Then config server we will use for the configuration management. Eureka registry we will use for the service discovery. Ribbon we will use for the client-side load balancing. And Fiend client or web client we will use for the declarative microservices to microservices communication. Spring Cloud gateway we will use as a gateway. And then Jipkin for the distributed tracing. ELK for the log management, distributed log management. Like all the microservices logs will be shown in one UI, that is ELK. Then Graph9 Prometheus for the metrics and metrics monitoring. And we will use this EC2 and auto scaling mechanism, which is from the AWS Cloud Compute Service. Then we will use network load balancer, and we will use our custom VPC and networking. Then we will use internet gateway and the NAT gateway. So these are all from the AWS infra setup point of view, these four. Okay, so that's all. From this tools point of view. And timings for coming 3 days, the demos will be conducted from 9 a.m. only, but regular classes will be start at 8:15 a.m. 8:15 a.m. Regular class timings are 8:15 a.m. So class timings are 8:15 a.m. So 8:15 a.m. to 9:15 a.m. Just 1 hour in weekdays, but 3 hours in weekend. So 3 hours in weekend. So 3 plus this is 5 plus 8 hours. So at least weekly we have to cover 10 hours of sessions. Otherwise, it is a little tough for us to complete these things. But weekly we will spend around 10 hours we have to spend. Yeah. So is it possible to have the regular classes from 9 to 10 a.m. as I can join from office? No, actually regular classes from 8:15 only, because maybe for a few members it is not possible. For a few members it may be possible, right? So but 8:15 to 9:15 is possible for everyone, because usually our office will start from 10 a.m. If anyone will start to offices nowadays of work from office, they can start out to office after 9:15. This is the feasible timing for everyone. That's the reason I have chosen. Even for me also, this is feasible timing. Okay, because again after 10:30 my office will start. So I also will have a continuous back-to-back calls once the office will start. So this timing will be the better timing for everyone, right, who is working. Okay, so tomorrow let us see these project concepts, project modules, use cases discussion, and I will also showcase you the existing source code, existing code base, meaning I will run and then showcase you the existing code base. Then from the existing code base, let us derive these modules. First, tomorrow I will explain the how many modules that we will have, what is the project concept, and React.js side, how we will set up, and what is the current UI, and how the existing system, and what is the expected system to be built. So those details we will discuss tomorrow. Okay, so what is the current system? So this is the current system. This is the current system. And then we required the redesigned system. So I will showcase you what is the current system, how the redesigned system is, and how we can achieve it, and all we'll discuss. That's all for this demo, guys. Any questions for me? Any questions? You can now talk to me. If you want to ask any questions, you can now talk to me. So after session completed, it will take 3 to 4 hours to upload the video to your Google Drive. Let us say session completed by the 9:15, 9:30. Then that video will be available to you by the 2 p.m. today, 2 p.m. every day. So that is what the practice we will do here. But sometime, maybe any technical issues have, then maybe sometimes it may get delayed, but every day you will get the recordings before the 2 p.m. Okay, right. Any more questions for me? Any questions? Any questions? If you want to ask anything, right? So prerequisite is Spring Boot, but if you don't know Spring Boot also, you can join, because next week onwards, I'm planning to conduct the weekend Spring Boot sessions. So 2 weekends Spring Boot session, 2 to 3 weekends Spring Boot session, Spring Boot 2.x. What is the current version? So Spring Boot 2.x with the current version as on today's version, I'm going to conduct a workshop. So that is a paid workshop, but I will allow you guys who joined for this batch and who don't know the Spring Boot but want to join this batch. For those guys, if you register for this batch, I will allow you there also for the Spring Boot weekend workshops. 2 weekend workshops I will conduct, which is very good enough to start this project. Okay. Yep. Any questions for me? Anything else? Any questions? Great. Thanks a lot. And then see you tomorrow again, same time, that is 9 a.m. And then let us see tomorrow. The expectation is the existing system walkthrough, understanding the project concepts, modules, and then let us go with the use cases derivation. Then we will see our database, how the database, and what is the database diagram, right? So what is the database diagram, how the database, how the relations and all. So let us slowly understand all those things. Fine. Thanks a lot. And this demo will be there till Friday or till Saturday. 3 to 4 demos we planned. So till Friday or till Saturday, these demos will be. So attend the demos, and if you feel it is good for you, then go for your registrations. Hello. Thanking you all, and see you tomorrow at the same time. Stopping my screen share for now. Yeah, any questions?
Hello, Narsi sir. Hello.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear my voice? Hello.
Yes, you are audible to me. You are able to, meaning I'm able to hear you.
Yes, thank you. I'm completely back-end developer. Is it necessary to React.js? Any knowledge required to attend this project?
Not required. However, the React.js, how to set up the React.js, how to integrate the microservices, all those things I will explain. But the TypeScript is mandatory for the React.js, but for the backend developers, even that is also not required, because it is like how we will write our class interface. Similarly, the same structure the TypeScript is. So nothing, no prerequisite, nothing. Just have the prerequisite as Spring Boot and join this batch. That's it. Nothing else is required.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions, guys?
Sir, it is 9 a.m.
Great.
every
Thanks a lot.
day. Hello, sir. One more question. Sorry, just lost one more question.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
It is every day. It's 9 a.m. It will be start because my office timings are 9
No,
a.m. only.
not every day. No. What I'm saying is not every day. These demos we planned, right? 3 demos or 4 demos. Maybe Wednesday today started, and then till Friday or till Saturday. The demos only will be from 9 a.m. to 9:45, 10 a.m. but actual classes will be starting from 8:15 a.m. 8:15 a.m. to 9:15 a.m. daily 1 hour, and weekends will spend minimum 3 hours.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. Any more questions? Okay, great. Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow at the same time, that is 9 a.m. for coming 3 to 4 days. Thanks a lot.